Hi guys, welcome to the use case tutorial, and today we are going to be looking at a use case for the Python loop. Now, before we get started, we're going to look at the intuition behind the Python loop. Think of a Python loop like giving instructions to a machine to repeat a task. So a an instruction, look at it as an instruction to repeat a task. Now, if you think of it like that, you can also think of a data frame, rows, columns. You can also think of collections. So examples for things like this, they can be applied. The Python loop can be applied in data frames. It can be applied in collections, items in collections. And when I say collections, I mean lists or a range of numbers. Now, so again, just to recap that, a Python loop is like giving an instruction to repeat a task. You give an instruction to a machine to repeat a task on each item. It could be rows, could be columns, could be items in a collection, list, or a range of numbers. So that's one. Now, the first thing we have to do is we have to look at how to write a for loop. So first things first, you would write a for loop using the for keyword. So this is the keyword. There is a temporary variable. I call this the temp variable. So that's one. We're going to look at that. Then we're also going to see the in operator. That would have the collection or data that we're going to be working with. Now, just to put something else in perspective, we are going to be using data today. We're going to be using data to understand what a for loop is. Now, for data analysis, a for loop is so important, right? So we're going to do for loop. We're going to have a for loop and a for loop in data analysis. So this is where we're going to put it in perspective and use get a use case. Now, for data analysis, you can use for loops to repeat tasks over data sets, calculate values for each columns, analyze data in rows, or iterate through rows. So now what we're going to do, we're going to be working with a data set, and it's a race car data set. So the first thing I'll do is I'll import the data processing API, or the data processing library. So what I'm going to use here, I'm going to import pandas SPD. Then I'm going to import numpy as np. So I have this set up. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to look at the data I'm going to use. The data I'm going to use is a race car data. So it's a race car data. So you're going to have data of race car drivers, Formula One drivers. So to do this, I will call this race car underscore drivers. That's what I'm going to call this data. So I'm going to use PD use the read CSV method to read the data set. So here I have it already in my directory. Now for this data set, I'm going to drop a link in the description so you could, walk through when you're watching the video. So here I'm going to look at the first 5 rows. And so you can see we have data, we have race IDs and all. There's data here. Okay, if you have a situation where you need to see all the data and if it's sort of redacted, we can use the PD option. We can use the PD option, and here we are going to display dot max underscore columns. This is what we're going to have, comma, and then we are going to say we're just going to write none here. Let me see if this works. Yes, this should. And then you can see that you can see all our data. So this is one. Now, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to write a for loop, and we're going to use a for loop for analysis. Now, before we start, we're asking, why do we want to use a for loop, right? So we're going to use a for loop to check the average points, for race car drivers. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to check it, and we're also going to know their names, right? So what we're going to do, so we know that if you look over here, we can see that we have the names of drivers. You can see Lewis Hamilton. Then there are points, right? So we have points. So here, I want to know the average points that the race car drivers averaged, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the for loop with a for keyword. I'm going to use, again, just like I mentioned over here, I'm going to use a temporary variable. So I'm going to call this driver or drivers. Then I'll use the in operator, because the in operator allows me to check something inside a collection. So what I want to do, I'm going to say race car drivers. And so because I want to see the name of the driver, right? I'm going to use the surname. So this is going to be Hamilton. So here I'm going to have surname. So that means I'm referencing that column. And now, interesting thing is, I just want to be sure it's the unique one, because you can see that I have Hamilton a lot here. So I just want unique, right? So I'm going to use this. So of course, the end of with the in operator on the collection or the data, what we're going to have next is a colon. A colon ensures that that's the end of it, and then introduces an indentation, right? So I have this, so I'm going to have an indentation here. Now, because I want to get the average, I'm going to go AVG, and I'm going to use the numpy's average method. So I say np.average, and I'm going to say I need to look at the race car drivers, and I'll use the where method, and the where method is going to say, look, I'm looking for the spot where I have surnames, right? So I'm going to go where open bracket, where race car drivers, and I'm looking for their surname, and their surname is going to be the drivers here. So that's what I'm going to reference here. So I'm going to reference the drivers. Now I'm going to change this and say, please drop any missing values. If you have any missing values, just drop it, right? Now that's one. Next, I'm going to chain one last thing. I'm going to look at the points because I'm looking for the points. So I need this point. So that's what I'm referencing. And over here, I'm going to put this and write points. So that's me referencing the points there. That's what I want. And I close this, right? Next, I am going to print. Now, just look at what I'm going to use here. So I'm going to use the F string, and I'll typically say this driver named, and so you see I want to reference the driver, the drivers here, so that's one, and I put a comma, averaged, then I'm going to put the AVG here, so it's going to represent the average points, right? So this driver named this averaged this points, right? So I'll probably just put this here, so should in case maybe the driver didn't average any points or it averaged more points. So I have this and I have this closed over here. So a for loop is typically this drivers in. So for drivers in race car drivers, we're looking at the surname. We want it to be unique. We're going to find the average of each race car driver for the points they have made, and we're going to print it. And so here we go. Oh, look at that. So you can see this driver named Hamilton averaged points. You can see. So this is typically what a for loop can do. So this is a typical use case of a for loop if you're doing analysis on data. So I need you to take your time, watch this again. I'm going to drop the data set as a CSV file in a link in the description so you can walk through and get to understand the use case for a for loop in Python.